Please note that the content of this episode has explicit language and is not suitable for underage listeners. You're listening to Secrets from a Phone Sex Queen, everything you always wanted to know about phone sex and more. I'm CJ. Let's get started. Welcome to my first podcast. I'm CJ, and I have been a phone actress for 21 years now. Phone actress is a nice way of saying phone sex operator. Let me tell you how I got started with my career as a phone sex queen. 21 years ago, I had a normal job. It was your typical 9 to 5. I got up every morning at 5 a.m. and did the mundane routine. I sat in traffic to get to work, did my job, got back in the car to sit in more traffic, and then I would come home and watch some TV. I realized that I wanted more. Something that would not only provide me with a more exciting life, but a job where I could earn more money to travel and go out to eat at nice restaurants and support my fun that I love to have. So I decided to start looking for a second job. There was a time when companies posted jobs where you could send out envelopes from home or all those at-home businesses where they said you could make a lot of money, but I didn't want to do any of those. I continued to search for the perfect second job. It wasn't until one day where my mom came to me and said she had found an ad from the paper saying phone actress wanted. I asked my mom if she knew what this ad was referring to, and she said, "Of course I do. You have a nice, sexy voice. Just call and see what they say." All right, let me pause for a second. Most of us think of our moms as being wholesome saints. Well, she wasn't exactly a saint, but she was the sweetest, most giving, traditional, and what I thought naive person, a nice Jewish woman. She knew what a phone actress was. How did she know about this line of work, and what did she know about having a sexy voice? I had so many questions, but I decided not to ask. So I called and went to voicemail, and it said, "Leave a message and we'll call you back." What the company really wanted was to hear your voice, and if they liked your voice enough, they would call you back. So I left a brief voicemail that sounded a little like this. "Hi, this is CJ. I saw your ad in the paper and wanted to get more information. Please call me at my number. I look forward to hearing from you." Well, the next day I got a call, and they said they really liked my voicemail, and they asked if I had done this before, and I said no. So they said, "Well, we are a dispatch company, which means that we patch the calls through. All you have to do is wait for the call and go." I said, "Okay." They said they would provide a name, a description, pictures of the girl that you are, and when the call comes through, it says the person's name that you'll be talking to, and if they wanted a role play or kinky, or if they had a fetish or whatever it was they wanted, and that was it. I didn't think to ask if they offered training or what to do. They just let me go. I had to work 5 days a week, 6.5 hours a night. They had something that they call a hold time, which means you have to keep the guy on for 5 minutes. Otherwise, you don't get paid. And then it was, some kind of per-minute payment if you kept them on over 5 minutes. I don't recall what that was exactly, but what I do know is the company made more money than I did. What I remember about my first night is I'm sitting on my couch, I'm watching TV, I'm wearing sweatpants, an oversized shirt, and slippers. I remember being nervous too, and when I say nervous, I mean super nervous. I'm sitting here waiting and waiting. I remember looking at the image of the girl the company provided, her dark long hair, perfect body, light blue eyes. I remember making up a storyline about my character and trying to create a backstory. Then the phone rings and I'm like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" And I pick up the phone. It tells me the person's name and what kind of call it was. I don't remember, They talk about remembering your firsts, your first love, your first kiss. I don't remember my first call, but what I do remember is that feeling of, "Oh my God, what have I gotten myself into?" So I get the call. And what do I remember is that it didn't last very long. I felt on the one hand a sigh of relief. Thank God that's done with. And on the other hand, I felt like I wouldn't say a failure, but I definitely felt like obviously it didn't go well because it didn't last more than 5 minutes. That I do remember. But over the course of the night, I got calls where I could interact with the caller and it made me feel a little better. I realized after the first and second night or so, maybe my first week, that this was not what I had expected. I really didn't know what to expect. I think it was that people would be calling and breathing heavily and, just coming really quickly, which does happen. But I found rather quickly that people call for all different kinds of reasons and still do up until this day. What I mean by that is that not everybody calls to have phone sex. Surprise! Well, it was a surprise to me. People do call just to talk. Once I found that out, I felt completely different about the job I had taken on. It was like I'm a lifeline for some people. I am someone that makes them feel less alone. I talked to several older people who didn't have family or friends and they wanted to talk to a pretty girl. They looked at the picture, they believed it was me, and wanted to talk to someone not about sex, but about their life or what's going on or about current events, anything. And once I got those calls, I realized it was more purposeful, this job. 80% of the job is talking to someone about sex or a fetish or a role play or a secret. I love keeping somebody's secret, at least them thinking I was keeping their secret because I'm not going to tell anybody they know. I don't know who they know. So that was really comforting to me to know that I was helping somebody in a non sexual way. So my mother knew I got the job, of course. My father knew I got the job, my family, my friends. I was not quiet about it because I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't ashamed. I wasn't made to feel embarrassed or ashamed. If anybody thought that what I was doing was wrong, they certainly didn't tell me. I don't think they would have had the nerve to tell me. And I've always been the kind of person who never cared what other people thought. I wasn't going to stop doing it because someone didn't like it. If they didn't like it, then they didn't have to be my friend or they didn't have to talk to me anymore. Or we didn't have to talk about it at all. So let's fast forward to about a month. I'd been learning so much from my nightly calls, and this night didn't seem like it would be any different. Like every other night, I get a call, it's a role play, and up until this point, I hadn't gotten any role plays. I thought every call was a role play, and it wasn't. It was really more just phone sex. So I get my first role play, and this guy calls with a very specific, detailed about a Wonder Woman role play. He wants me to be Wonder Woman, and I'm in a warehouse, and this and that, and this goes on for, with no exaggeration, 20 minutes. This I remember because it made an indelible impression in my brain that somebody really thought this out. A lot of people call with specific ideas that they want to play out, and so this guy had a specific idea. He just went for it. He was explaining all sorts of things, and while he's talking to me, my mind is wandering about what do I know about Wonder Woman? Nothing. I know nothing. I know she's tall. She's beautiful. She has a truth lasso. I think that's what the lasso was for. She had two gold wrist cuffs, and that's all I know. And I think the wrist cuffs deflected bullets. So by the time he was done with this 20-minute setup of a role play, I'm thinking to myself, gee, how can he possibly be hard and ready to go after 20 minutes of setting it up? But maybe the setup was part of the excitement for him. I don't know to this day. I do not know. But when it came time for me to talk, oh boy, was I nervous. Fortunately enough, he had set it up in such a way that there really wasn't much for me to do at this point. And so he enjoyed the role play. I think he did. I think he called back once or twice, not with that role play. I don't even know if he called back with another role play, but definitely not anything that specific. And I realized, you fake it till you make it. Just like phone sex, that you just have to go with it and hope for the best. I learned that you're not going to please everyone, but you certainly are going to try your best. And in this case, I really did try. I worked for that company for a year and a half and I worked really hard. And one of the things I learned and was told when I got hired was we have rules. The company laid the rules out beside the 5 minute hold time, the per minute payment, the things you can say and cannot say, which really is taken from one company to the other. You're not supposed to do rape fantasies or incest fantasies or anything having to do with drugs. Okay, that's fine. I can do that. Also, under age is forbidden, of course. But then they say don't ever meet a caller. And I thought to myself, well, why would I want to meet a caller if there's a picture on the website and you have a different name and you have a different description? How could you possibly meet anybody? So after being with the company for about a year, I get a caller who has a great voice. And I think the first call was part phone sex, part personal, just talking and we hit it off. It was odd because everything he said I liked. We talked about music. We talked about all sorts of things. So after talking for 6 months on the phone sex line, but not about phone sex, he said, I'm going to be in your area. He lived in the same state as me, but in a different area, farther away. And he goes, I'm going to be around your area. Let's meet. And I said, okay. And I thought to myself the whole time, what are you doing? I had to tell him what I looked like, so I gave him my real description, my real name. He did the same. We didn't exchange email addresses or phone numbers, so he was forced to continue calling the phone sex line. I did that on purpose. So we just talked about our looks and where we were going to meet. We were both excited to be real with each other. It seemed we concentrated more on our looks and what we had in common. That I didn't ask if he was married, divorced, kids. I didn't ask any of that. I really don't think that came up. Looking back, that was naive, of course, but I was fairly new to this and again was excited because we just clicked. It was really an exciting time. I'm crazy and stupid, and why am I doing this? And I thought, well, you never know where you might meet Mr. Right. We met, and from that, what I remember, he was very good looking. He was not disappointed in the way I looked, considering I didn't look like the picture online. I look completely different. Since it was about 20 years ago, I don't even remember his first name. We met at a restaurant on a pier overlooking the ocean. We had a drink. I think we had appetizers, and he bought me a bracelet, which I don't even know where that went. We talked a lot and really hit it off. It was just so comfortable. I told him my real name and what I did for a living, and I was really excited and so happy to be with him. We went back to where his hotel was, but we got out of the car, made out in the parking lot. I was really nervous and excited at the same time. He wanted me to come up, and I said no, but I'll meet you for breakfast. And he said, okay. We kissed some more, and I left. And as I was driving home, which was not very far from where he was staying, I was kicking myself, thinking, I should have stayed, I should have stayed. But there was a little voice in the back of my head saying, no, leaving is the right thing to do. The next day, I called him up, and he's not answering his phone. And I called the hotel, and they said he's checked out. And I call his phone again, and he answers. And I said, what happened? And he said, there's something I need to tell you that I haven't told you. And by the way, I've lied to you. I really enjoyed meeting you, and I'm married, and I have kids. And I said, okay, thank you for letting me know. And we hung up. And I realized at that point that my gut was right, and that from that day forward, I would never meet anyone again from the phone line. I would follow the rules, and I'm thinking to myself, this is what happens when you break the rules. Things happen. Fortunately enough, I didn't get fired. He didn't hurt me mentally or physically. And since then, I've met no one. And I've been tempted, but I always go with my gut, and my gut is constantly, well, I wouldn't say constantly because there haven't been a lot, but my gut is screaming no. So I follow the rules. I do occasionally bend them when it comes to a phone call, but I try really hard not to. Currently, there is someone I'm talking with who really wants to meet me, and I feel bad because he is into me. But again, the pictures don't match, and either does the age. So I'm very nice to him. And frankly, I don't think I'd have a problem meeting him. But I tell him about my one encounter and how I vowed I would never do that again. He says he understands, but I may lose a caller, and that's the way it has to be, then that's the way it has to be. After working at that company for 1.5 years, I realized I needed a break. I was working a lot and missing out on family gatherings, which really bummed me out. Like I said, 5 days a week, 6.5 hours a night, and I found that I was taking between 22 and 25 calls on average per night. I was only getting about 5.5 hours of sleep per night. Now, granted, not all the calls are long. Some were less than 5 minutes, some were an hour, and so it became exhausting. I needed a break. So I took about a year off, and I realized that I think I missed it a little bit more, but more importantly, I missed the money. So I took a leave of absence from the company, but while I was away, they sold the company. I think they did. And I couldn't come back for whatever reason. They said, you were gone too long, you're no longer employed, or something to that effect. They kept looking through their records and couldn't find me. So I found a website where you can look up phone sex companies, and I worked for several different phone sex companies after that. And the reason why I worked for several was because there was this rule. You had to work 20, 30, 40 hours a week or whatever. And I had a day job. That was more important. I couldn't commit to working all these hours that these companies wanted, but I did the best I could. What I found too was that from the time I started to the time I came back to phone sex, there were trends. Some years there's a lot more guys wanting to have sex with guys. Some years there's a lot more spankings or a lot more adult babies or a lot more whatever the fetishes of that time are. There'll be years where I will not talk to an adult baby, and then all of a sudden there'll be a bunch, and I'll tell you about adult babies later. You can just imagine, and even if your imagination isn't going to get you there. So I learned also rather quickly that phone sex is about a lot of things from my point of view. Being a phone actress, and that is the one thing that will make you successful in being a phone sex operator is listening. People want to talk and share, and generally people don't listen. I listen. That is part of the job. It is to talk, but more importantly, it is to listen to them. I have heard so many men say I'm different, and I was wondering why in the beginning. I thought, is that really a good thing or a bad thing? And I realized, and they told me it's a good thing because being different makes you stand out. And the reason why I stood out was because I sounded real and I listened. That wasn't my intention in the beginning to be different, but it became my intention after hearing, wow, you sound different. You sound real. Then it became my mission. I wanted to sound as real as possible. I wanted to bring out as much of me as possible instead of being the, oh, baby, baby, like a porn star. There's nothing wrong with that by any means, but I wanted to sound real. So I'd say, hey, how's it going? What are you up to? What's happening? And when they would answer those questions, my response would obviously be whatever their response is to me. If they're like, oh, baby, I'm hard, then I'd go, really? And we'd go down that path. If they're like, well, I'm sitting here and I'm bored and I'm doing nothing, then we'd have a conversation. That's what made me different. Sometimes it's a good different. For other people, it's not a good different. And so, you can't please everyone. And I've learned that sometimes that frustrates me and other times I'm okay with it. Listening is a good thing, especially when I kept hearing, these other phone sex girls, they just tell me I talk too much. Talk away. That's why you called me. I am here for you. I'll give you an example of a caller who just wanted to talk. Besides the role play, this is just a talk. So a guy calls me up. This was in my first, I'll say, couple years, and he says to me that he has his girlfriend and he and his girlfriend get bored every once in a while. And so one day they were having some friends over to watch football or to have a party or whatever it is. And he said they were going to make brownies before their friends came. So they had the brownie batter ready and they had sex and he jizzed in the brownie batter and they baked it and they served it to their friends. He said they really loved the brownies and they just kind of chuckled inside and thought it was super funny. And instead of saying how grossed out I was, because I really was, I said, wow, that's super creative, trying to give him a little bit of, that's a good boy type of thing, encouragement. You did something good, so he appreciated that. And he goes, well, if we do anything else, I'll let you know. So a few months go by, he calls me again, and he's like, hey, it's me. And I said, hi, what have you been up to? And he goes, well, we had some friends over again. And I kind of was laughing. I didn't think to ask him, are they the same friends as the people that ate the brownies? Instead, I just said, so what did you do? And he said, well, we had some friends over and we went to get some burgers at a fast food restaurant. And when we got the burgers, we pulled over, we had sex, and I did it again on the burgers and fed them to my friends. And they thought they were pretty good, but a little salty. Once again, I thought, how disgusting. Am I going to have to worry about when I have friends buy food? I don't think that my friends are that gross, but you never know. So I just said, wow, once again. And you guys are super creative. People want to call and confess their sins, tell me what they want to do or have done, or something they can't tell anybody else because nobody would understand. And in this case, his friends would be grossed out and not trust him anymore. I'm not judgmental. They can tell me anything, and I'm not going to judge them unless, of course, they want me to. And that, again, is a whole other story. So you get all kinds of people while doing phone sex. One of the things my friends said to me in the very beginning and over time probably haven't said to me in a while, but every once in a while it'll pop up and they'll say, you must hate men when you hear so much. You must just hate men. And I say, no, I don't hate men. I think that men are misunderstood. Sometimes I get, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, women complicate things. Men are pretty simple: food, work, sports, sex. Granted, not every man is that way, but those are the things that men like. Of course, there are other things, other extracurricular activities that guys like, but for the most part, it's not that difficult. No, I don't hate men. Of course, sometimes there are things I don't like that they say to me, but I don't take it personally. How can I take something personally when they don't even know me? Some people would, but not me. It's a job, and I treat it like it's a job. However, I don't let my callers know that. I want them to think I enjoy talking to them as much as they enjoy talking to me. That's where the actress part comes in. I don't enjoy it all the time. There are nights I log in and I'm not in the mood to talk to people. I just don't want to hear one more word that they have to say. I have a man right now who called me for a long time, a really long time. I would say 4 nights a week with the same exact role play every single time with no variant. It was the same thing over and over and over again. I had to act like it was the first time because that's my job, whether I like it or not. Guess what? I can quit anytime. No one's holding a gun to my head to keep me doing this. However, it is the easiest job I've ever had. And again, to be honest, I enjoy it. I can choose not to log in 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights. I took psychology courses in junior college, and it's helped me tremendously with my patience and understanding. I don't have to do this, but I enjoy it. So part of me doing this podcast is taking questions from people who listen. And so what I'd like to do is get questions sent to phonesexqueen1, the number one, at gmail.com. And every week I will answer a question or two, depending upon the question and how long it takes to answer it. And that way we'll have some back and forth interaction. I will not mention the person who sent it to me. I will just say what the question is and give you an answer or response. So that way every week we'll talk about what you guys want to know. I'll talk about, fetishes and role plays and calls I get and trends and what people like and don't like and what people have said to me and some phone calls that I've taken. So we'll talk about that and then a question or two depending upon what the question is. So my email again is phonesexqueen1 at gmail.com. It's the number one. Nobody's asked me this lately, but I've been asked this a lot. So here is the answer to the first obvious question. I'm sure somebody will ask me this, even though I'm telling you the answer right now. And the first question that's the most asked question to me in all these years is, do I get off on the phone calls? Well, I'm sure you would all love me to say, yes, I do, or yes, I have. But the answer to that is no. And I will tell you why. My focus is on the caller, plain and simple. It's not about me. It's not about what I like or what I want. It's about the caller. If the caller says to me, I want to please you, okay, you can please me, and I will fake it, and you will never know because I have, just like the caller, my own criteria. My criteria is the best voice ever, a strong masculine voice, a man who knows what he wants. We'll just call him an alpha male type of guy. I would say 8 out of 10 of my men that call me are not alpha males, but more important than that is that I am here to do a job, and my job is to take care of the caller. It's not about my own gratification making me feel good. It's about the caller. Have I said that? It's about the caller. And I don't care if the caller wants to please me. I can fake that easy. I'm not going to take care of myself on a call and lose myself in that call in order to please me when I am here and being paid to please the caller. Now, don't get me wrong. There have been a couple times, I'm not going to lie, where I've had the right call with the right voice, with the right alpha male, more so in the beginning when I first started. I do recall that there was a man who I loved it when he called me. And I think I did enjoy taking care of myself when he called. I think that was the first year or two I worked. Since that time, I think there's one or two callers that have called me, and I've tried to take care of myself. But I would say 7 out of 10 times when the caller is done, they hang up. They don't say goodbye. They don't say thank you. They hang up. And where does that leave me? High and dry. So the answer to the question, do I take care of myself, is no. That is done after work. Sorry to burst all your bubbles. Thank you for listening to Secrets from a Phone Sex Queen, everything you always wanted to know about phone sex and more. And don't forget to please email me at phonesexqueen1, that's the number one, at gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at phonequeen1 and on Facebook at CJCJ. Until next time, stay sexy.